in our vocabulary. Because as soon as we got the equipment, we started our move to the north to seal off the Germans that were still in the Battle of the Bulge. So that was so much for that misnomer. We stayed in there until about mid-January and had moved out several miles to the north to seal off these Germans, and they called us down to the south to seal off another bulge that the Germans had pushed there. So we went down there. And when that was done, then we started doing a little piecemeal. It'd take a battalion or a regiment to go do a specific job. We were never used as a full division after that. And I got a chance to visit with my little lady. Went back to the unit, went back to the States. And gentlemen, that's about it. And ladies. So, if I haven't bored you to death, please, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Yes?
Do you still Skype? Do you still Skype?
Skype?
Do you still Skype? Use it?
Steve?
No.
Where are you?
No. Sadly, she passed away a year ago this December.
Steve, come over here. Come over here.
I've got to be his ears.
He has to be my ears. I don't hear very well.
First of all, I want to say, honor to be here with you today. And thank you for your contributions and sacrifices you made for us, our and me. I do have a question.
Huh?
Why did you volunteer for Airborne?
Why did you volunteer for Airborne?
When the Japanese hit Pearl Harbor, I sort of scoffed at it. I was 19 years old, and I knew everything in this world that was worth knowing. And I knew that we had the greatest Army and Air Force and Navy in the world. And I knew that the Japanese would last about 2 weeks. We'd have them bombed back to eternity. Anyway, it turned out that I was misinformed. Our Navy had suffered a terrible blow. Our Air Force had obsolete airplanes. And our Army was pretty good at a parade. We started backing up. We backed up from one island to another one. And so I got the feeling that I might be able to help. So I volunteered for the Army Air Corps. I was going to become a bomber crewman and bomb these Japs out of existence. So when I went in for my physical exam, I had been approved. I was going to go to the Army Air Corps. Went down for the examinations though. After I was examined and they put me on a bus, I wound up in Camp Claiborne, Louisiana, a member of the 82nd Infantry Division. So much for being promised. A few months later, that was in March, the Army was working on the idea of having airborne divisions. We didn't have any airborne divisions. We had a few parachute battalions, and that was it. No regiments. Nobody knew what airborne was. Well, they split the 82nd Infantry Division and made two airborne divisions out of it, the 101st and the 82nd. I was in the part that was put into the 101st. Well, we had a formation one day, and coming up the road was a lieutenant, and I think 3 enlisted men. They had their hats sitting on the side of their head and boots that you could see yourself in, and chest out about way out there. And I said, who are these people? Well, this lieutenant gave us a little speech. He told me, we are American paratroopers. We're here to see if you want to be paratroopers. And he went on to say, if you become a paratrooper, you'll be the first in. You'll have your first opportunity to get rid of the Germans or the Japanese, whichever way you go. Well, I thought that sounded pretty good. So he said, well, how many of you want to be a paratrooper? Okay. He said, all you who want to be paratroopers, fall out on the street. So we fell out on the street, formed up. He said, we're going to have a little exercise. He said, we're going to do a little double time. So he gave us double time down the road until about a third of them dropped out. My tongue was hanging down about here, but I looked at it and said, well, how many of you think you could be a paratrooper? Okay, we'll go back a little more. So he said, we're going to introduce you to push-ups. The only push-up that I'd ever known was this little ice cream thing. And you pushed up out of it. And they didn't give us any ice cream. He demonstrated what a push-up was. Well, one of the sergeants with him did. He said, now we're going to try some push-ups. So he did push-ups until about another third or fourth of them dropped out. Well, his language became a little rough. He said, how many of you miserable bastards think you could qualify? How many of you think you could really be a paratrooper? So, he said, when you get back to your company, tell the company clerk, and we'll take care of it from there. So about a week later, our company was about 170 men. And it wound up that about 14 or 15 of us had wanted to be paratroopers. So we went then to Fort Benning for qualification, and we joined the division, which by that time had moved up to Fort Bragg. And the rest of it, double time everywhere, and keep your hands out of your pockets. And I learned what 25 meant. 25 push-ups. Is there any other questions?
Mention about
Huh?
Market Garden.
I don't, no.
Market Garden.
Well, Market Garden was not,
Tell them, not me, I already know.
well, Market Garden, Holland, it's in Netherlands now. They don't want to be called Holland. But for that, I had the privilege of riding into Holland on a glider. Now, if any of you have ever seen the World War II gliders, you will know what an experience that could be. First day going in, we lost a few of the gliders in the channel going across from England. The second day, there was not many of them that went in, but on the third day, they lost about 35 gliders in the channel. I never want to ride a glider again. So, but we had a beautiful landing zone there, and the pilot made the best landing he ever made in his life. But after we got out of the gliders and started moving off the landing zone, then the rest of the gliders started coming in and mayhem occurred. The gliders were crashing into each other as they landed. And that was a terrible sight. And that's when I saw my first dead Germans of the Holland campaign. On the way off the field, there was a little ambulance there. Lying beside this ambulance was two women and a man. I thought they were German nurses and a German medic. I found out years later that our fighter planes had been sent in before the paratroopers gliders went in, and they were told, anything that moves on that field, take it out. It turns out that these two women, one of their husbands had been